The Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Soulution Section. Soulution Paper Number 3, Expansion on the Living Library. DNA, an Ascension. By Penre, Friday, August 7, 2011. Part 3. 5. The Hierarchy of 144,000. There are those existing in this universe who are ancient. They have been working on and in this universe for eons and eons. They are ancient elders and they are honored by alien species as great wise men and women, in our terms, although they are genderless. Some call them the keepers of existence. They are the ones who make the movements and drive the system like a pilot drives a ship. They steer the universe on its course to discovery. They are the ones who keep the goals of galaxies, star systems, and universes obtained, in the best ways possible. We know them as the founders. There is a plan to send energies into a new experience here on Earth and a number of other star systems where we simultaneously exist. Emotion is essential and the key to it all in comprehending all identities compacted into one. There is actually no preconceived idea of what will happen, this is new territory. The Pleiadians say. What is in Earth is like a locked-away secret in the chronicles of time, and it has to do with emotion. In this gift of emotion there is wealth and richness, there is incredible ability to transcend many different realities and to move through and experience many different states of awareness. Emotion allows certain energies to coalesce, fuse, bond, and come together in realization of themselves. Without emotion, that bond could not be. There is a hierarchy in this universe and beyond, working under the ancient elders, but the hierarchy we are talking about is not a hierarchy of egotistical power, it's a hierarchy which works out of love, cherishes life and who we are, and have been able to see through the time mechanisms keyed into our planet, and they understand that this planet is ready for an evolutionary leap. There are 144,000 members of this spiritual hierarchy, infused in the gridwork of the planet at this particular time. Each master has its own seal that represents one portion of the language of light, and we have 144,000 seals of energy that will eventually be infused within our being. In the beginning, we will start with only 12 forms of energy that the body can hold. Much further down the line, once the transformation has fully occurred, there will be an infusion of the entire 144,000 symbolic language structures through our being. This goes way beyond our comprehension at this time. Just like the Pleiadians, the Guardian Alliance talk about these 144,000 masters as well in Asha Yana Dean's Voyagers series, Dean 2002, 2nd edition, Voyagers 2 p.160, pages 194-195. The Guardians are telling us that the 144,000 are needed to activate our 6th DNA strand. This, of course, is the alignment with higher consciousness, and it has everything to do with the 12 chakras and the 12 helix DNA that the Creator Gods are currently working with. However, not everybody will search for the divine and many are going to refuse increased awareness. This is a choice, and those who refuse will eventually live the lives they are creating in a different reality from those who choose to expand. There is no right and wrong in this, only choice. When we become aware of whom we are, that's one of the 5th steps on the journey. Then, when we start getting aware of the divine consciousness that seeds this planet, an intellect that is vast, loving, and works with us, and when we connect to that consciousness and ask to be a part of it, that's when we are being implanted with geometric forms. These forms come in a variety of shapes, and we see the structures everywhere on the planet. The pyramid form is just one of them, the cube another. What this language of light will do for us will be the subject for another paper, but this is going to be an important part of our evolution. The main thing to remember now is that we are watched over, and we are loved and supported. Those who really want to expand their consciousness and are constantly working on it will reach their goals. Picture inside of you what it is you want, what kind of world you want to live in and with whom, what kind of people would you like to be living amongst. How do you want to live, in what environment, what do you want to do for a living? It's imperative that we know what we want, or we can't create any sustainable future. It's not enough to say that we want love and light, we need to picture our future and go for it. Always keep your goals of the future world in mind, like a carrot that you are closer and closer to be able to grab, contrary to the donkey, who may never reach it. As we shall see later, we need a certain percentage of the world population who paint their reality with a similar broad brush for the masses to follow. So be careful with what you want, stop sloppy thinking and sloppy talking. Be clear in your mind and in your thought. Think before you speak. It is very important. These are the rules to follow to be able to be the keepers of frequency and the increasers of frequency. Here is a quote about frequencies, by the Pleiadians, 1992. Earth's owners, the Anunnaki, have not wanted humans to understand that their feelings and emotions are like a crop, such as wheat, that can be harvested. If you are in charge of your own harvest, then others cannot take advantage of you and use you unless you decree it. When you operate with a certain frequency and sovereignty, those who wish to control you are not interested in you. They want a fearful, chaotic frequency, which is what nourishes them. Death and chaos have predominated on this planet because these entities have stirred them up. They have divided and conquered everywhere to create that frequency. When you operate in peace and love and with information, you alter the structure of this place drastically, you bring choice of frequency back to this planet. This takes us directly to another interesting subject. 6. The harvest. I first learned about the concept of the harvest from Hidden Hand, which led me to the RA material, which is taking on the subject big time. In short, it has to do with frequencies and vibrations like everything else. Metaphysical sources are telling us that if we work on our frequency and start vibrating on a certain frequency, which is above the frequency fence the Anunnaki put us in, we break free and experience higher densities on a new earth. We are coming back to the harvest in a moment, but first. 6.1 We must slow down. What the powers that be, PTB number, are trying to do now is to ride on the fact that time is speeding up. There are many reasons as to why they are creating a financial meltdown and economical crisis on a global scale right now, and we will not go through them all here, but the movers and shakers of this world know how to squeeze out all opportunities from a given possibility. They are laying off more and more people, who then will be stressed, not knowing if they will continue receiving unemployment before they get a new job, and often the low amount of money they receive from unemployment forces them to change lifestyle drastically. Their houses may have a foreclosure, they may have to move into a crowded space with relatives they may or may not like to live together with, and worse. It's becoming a stressful situation, based on fear and anxiety, food for the gods. The rest, who still have a job and are employed to keep parts of the show on the road, must then work for 2, 3, and sometimes 4 people. The pace is enormous and the multitasking required inhumane. Society is telling us to speed up and time itself is speeding up as well. What to do? I've said it a few times before and I say it again, slow down. The only way to put yourself on top of the world is to slow your pace. If you're at the fairground, sitting in a carousel which starts spinning faster and faster because the machinery is out of control, what happens if you stay on the carousel wheel? Sooner or later, unless someone regains control over the machinery, you're going to go insane from the spinning. Same thing with life. If you stay in the super fast loop, you are going to go insane, eventually. The trick is to take deep breaths and slow down and step outside the network of functional insanity for a while. Best would be if you could just quit your crazy job, move to the countryside and slow down both mentally and physically. Not all of us are fortunate enough to be able to do this, though. We still need a job, which normally requires everything, and more, from us, but the trick is to slow down inside. I, too, have a job which normally requires a lot from me and my co-workers, but I have managed to slow down inside and thus be in control over the situation. And lo and behold, the world outside, to a large degree, adjusts to my inner guidance. I am still required to do the same things, but it is all of a sudden manageable and I'm not stressed out. I still get the job done with the same precision. It also helps that I come from a European country where the pace is much slower, or at least was when I left it. Interestingly enough, studies show that in Sweden, where everything is more laid back, we still get the same job done, sometimes more, as Americans who multitask and are subjected to high stress levels, do. Sweden also has one of the highest longevity in the world, where Japan is number 1. The problem in the near future, and it is already starting, is that even the laid-back countries will have to speed up to keep up with the declining economy. At least that's what people will be told. The question is how well those from more easygoing countries will adjust to the new, multitasking reality. I certainly had problems with this when I moved over here to the USA. It was quite of a shock. There is no great magic secret to how to slow down. Breathing exercises and knowledge about how energy works are the keys. Slow down the particles inside of you and stay calm as much as you can. Same thing in your spare time. Find moments of rest and deep breathing and listen to Leonard Cohen if you need to, the king of slow and soothing energies. This is so important that if we don't manage to be in charge of our own energy field and slow down when time and society speed up, we are going to either end up in the asylum or where the rest of society ends up. This is what separates the wheat from the chaff. Our ascension depends on it. Here is the guideline for a great breathing exercise, which is very easy to practice. http://wespenre.com/quantum-pause.htm. There are lots of others that are very good, but this is the one I am using the most myself, and it's working amazingly well. 6.2 Preparing for the harvest season. When enough people on this planet have reached a certain frequency, when the collective has built enough power, individuals all over the world will follow and find themselves on a quickening of awareness which will come quite sudden, seemingly out of nowhere. This will happen to a larger or lesser degree to most people, but then it's a matter of individual choice what to do with these new energies. Some will embrace them when they come and ride on the wave, while others will do their best to resist, clinging on to the functional insanity as a safe haven, in spite of the drama and trauma involved, because it is all they know. This latter category of people are afraid of the unknown and dare not try new waters. You are going to see a lot of people in this category, and they will move into the big cities, into safety, where the machine kingdom is rapidly getting established, and Big Brother is taking care of them. We will see people who are totally in the hands of the PTB to such an extent that many of them will end up as cyborgs, half human and half machine. When they get ill and some body parts start malfunctioning, these parts are replaced with artificial parts which can do the job to keep the body alive. What people forget, because of their fear and anxiety and inability to cope with life and death, is that each body part in the human body is alive and fills a function for the individual. When body parts are replaced with machine parts to keep the body alive, people become more and more like robots and zombies, with no capacity to evolve as a species, except from machine technology. Eventually, the human body can no longer mass produce, is not good enough for a soul to inhabit it, and that's the death of Homo sapiens sapiens. What remains is a soulless race, much like factions of the Zeta Greys, run by interdimensional beings. We're at a fork in the road, and the above is a very plausible timeline, branching out from the main road. The other part of the population will end up doing pretty much the opposite. They will embrace these new energies, and as their awareness increases they want to break free from the chains that are holding them down. They will say that's it. To slavery and control, and start yearning for nature and the countryside. Many will end up in small collectives, self-sufficient communities where everybody is helping everybody else in the community by contributing with their own particular skills. No one will be left behind or kicked out, unless they evidently and consciously work against the survival of the community, and nature will be the focus point for their continuous ascension process. This was done a lot in the 1970s, when hippies moved out in the country and started growing their own food. This worked very well for a while, and there was a movement back then which was a forerunner for what is going to come. It didn't work out so well in the long run for two main reasons. 1. The awareness level was not high enough for the involved to be keepers of frequency, there was still a lack of knowledge, and this was before the nanosecond, meaning that the real DNA reactivation had not started yet, and 2. The movement was infiltrated by the PTB. They let the hippies do their thing for a while intentionally so to show the world that this kind of rebellion is not only childish and naive, but also non-workable, which is not true. The media covered the hippie movement until the world knew what it was about, and then they infiltrated it and split it up, until people gave up and moved back into the cities. Some say that the hippie movement was planned all the way from the beginning, because the PTB knew what was coming in the future, i.e. the nanosecond and people working on breaking out. Their hope was that many would think twice before doing so, knowing that it had been tried before and didn't work. In an earlier paper I made the comparison between the frequency fence we live in with a radio tuned into one single station, when there are a lot of other stations as well. A lot of people will find that they are getting tuned into a lot of different radio stations on a higher frequency than the one they were trapped in, and eventually, the old radio station will disappear or fade out and these people will find themselves living in a new world, on a new earth, which vibrates on a much higher frequency. This is a quite simplistic way of explaining the exact science of ascension, but you get the picture. In a future paper, I will explain the exact science behind it. I can't emphasize enough that the times we live in right now are extremely unique. These are the times when karmic timelines will come together because we attract them in the process of breaking out. Huge karma from the Atlantis and the Lemurian times will hit humanity with full impact, in all meanings of the word impact. People are having sightings of UFOs all the time, all over the planet. The media have been quiet about it up until quite recently, but are now selectively starting to report on it. UFO researchers and believers are often enthusiastic and think that the truth about visitors and UFOs will now finally come out in the open. Don't count on it. There will be a media coverage, but not for the reasons the UFO community may think. Those behind the media have their own agenda, please be aware of this. I just want to mention it here. If the media are announcing that the ETS are here and we're not alone in the universe, and then go on telling us whatever story they have typed and projected on a screen in front of them in the studio, and it's going to be based on deception. The media is not going to tell us the truth about the ETS. At the time of this writing, the big TV stations are announcing UFO activities around the Great Lakes in the US, Canada, and other parts of the world. See video 1 below. Yes, these UFOs are real, but the announcement is not in an effort to unite the people and create some unity with alien forces, in this case the Anunnaki, but to prepare the world for the presence of an alien race that does not have our best interests in mind. The real ET connection will start happening inside. There is not going to be a mass landing of UFOs from good-hearted aliens. Those who support us are mainly going to do so by connecting with us on a spiritual level rather than a physical. There will be physical contacts with ETS as well, but outside the scope of the media and on a more individual, small community basis. The builders, who are presently starting to appear on our planet, do not want media attention as the UFOs over the Great Lakes obviously do, and we know who they are, thanks to Michael Lee Hill. See separate paper for my interview with him. 6.3 Into the Harvest and Beyond. One of the most prominent fear and anxiety people have is about death. Many don't want to admit it, but they are still afraid to die. I've suggested many times in my papers that fear and anxiety is what is really holding us back from raising our frequencies. Thus, people can say that they don't fear this, and they don't fear that and think they are fearless. However, not until you overcome the fear of death can you reach higher densities. Think about it. You want to expand your consciousness until you reach as high as you believe is possible, but you fear death. Then you are still within the frequency fence, because death is part of it. We will all die. Albeit, we need to really grasp the concept that we live in the Matrix, and this is just a huge hologram A game we're playing and there is no such thing as death, just disposal of vehicles. You will actually feel much better and more vital when you die. If you ransack yourself and notice that you still have death anxiety, please review my paper, Metaphysics paper number 4, There is a Light at the End of the Tunnel. What happens after body death? We all need to come to terms with this subject. It's one of our greatest challenges, but also the most rewarding. Once we pop out of that fear, then nothing can really shake us. That is why the PTB and the metaphysical forces behind them withhold this information from you. Lately, mainstream media have made some fair documentaries on NDE, near-death experiences, but they stubbornly avoid mentioning Dr. Michael Newton's work, where he has documented proof of that is happening exactly in the afterlife. One may wonder, why not putting him on air? These papers, my work, are merely guidelines. This is the best, and only way, I can really efficiently help my fellow man. I can't do anything else for anybody on their spiritual path, because our reality is set up in a way that we must self-motivate to be able to evolve and be empowered. All I can do is to light that little spark in people, which will hopefully start them, or have them continue on their own road to enlightenment. I see the urge for me and others to do this, although some may say it is not important, because we are only here to empower ourselves, and by doing so, and be an example for others, we empower them too and thus get them started. This is true and also what most people are here to do, and that is both great and valid, but there are also a few who need to wake the mass consciousness up the best they can. That's not for everybody. It's a soul agreement that some of us have made, and it's just the way it is. We are one big soul family here on Earth, divided into smaller soul groups to have individual experiences. So, love everybody despite their shortcomings. That's the only way to go free, because if you don't, there are parts of yourself you do not love, and these exact parts will come back at you, harder and harder, until you deal with them and turn anger, fear, or whatever emotion it could be, into love. Can you see how this works? We need to get to a point when fear and anxiety is a part of the past, in our terms, and the new way of thinking becomes as natural as breathing and sleeping. And not even that is true. By erasing these lower vibrations from your present life, you heal them along the lines of time as well, and you literally change your own past and future, your own timelines, and heal along the lines of time. You become whole and one with yourself. Your learning experiences here in this version of Earth are over. When you've overcome the fear of death, you are ready to absorb the following information and really take it to heart and not just let it be something you read, nod your head at, and then forget about. What is real ascension, and what is the harvest that so many metaphysical entities talk about? Actually, there are basically two kinds of harvests: 1, the one that leads to ascension, and 2, the one the Zeta Gray researchers call the harvest of souls, which is the trap, the deception. It has nothing to do with ascension, but abduction of information clouds/souls, and is something we will discuss later on, at another level of this school of learning. In New Age, ascension often means that we all of a sudden transmute into a higher density and everything around us changes instantly. Sometimes you have help from ascended masters or the Ashta command. Watch out for these teachings, because they will either lead you nowhere, or they are right out counterproductive and dangerous. The Ashta command is nothing less than the Syrian Anunnaki in disguise. Maybe it should be read the Ishtar command instead, Ishtar being the Anunnaki female royalty, Inanna, the Black Widow, who chose human men to be her lovers, and then she killed them. Did she ate them too afterwards, just like the spider? It doesn't tell, but I wouldn't be surprised. The Black Widow metaphor may have more truth to it than people realize. Now, if I say that real ascension, or the real harvest, does not require body death, how would that differ from New Age ideas? The difference is marginal but important. In New Age, you dispose your third density body and ascend via your lesser dense light body and magically transform into this new, beautiful fourth or fifth density, which is there, waiting for you. You get the concept that you fly away to some planet somewhere, where life all of a sudden is free from war, hate, anger, or any or most of the negativity we experience in 3D. Everybody will live in love and peace and do their thing until it's time to evolve into the next density. Others say you need to die to be able to get to the new level of reality. In the real harvest you stay in your current body. Harvest means that you have activated your dormant DNA and are now seeing reality with a new pair of eyes. You rearrange your molecular structure in your current body. This is why it is so important to keep grounded and take care of your vehicle, your body. It needs to be as strong as possible to be able to receive the cosmic radiation to reactivate the DNA. Making the ascension leap to the next density and complete our journey here is possible for many of the species living upon this planet. Some of us have already completed the journey once, but come back to help out during this important time period. Those who have done it before remember how it was, the grand journey to get out of this reality. It took lifetime after lifetime to come to the point of total dedication. Part of it was to not live in the material society and go back to live close to nature to be able to do it. Then, once this step was taken, it was a matter of connecting with the elements, communicate with them, love them, play with them, learn how to not fear them, and become one with them. That's different from living in a cabin somewhere because we're bitter because of how society is run and place a gun by our bed to keep all strangers out. Taking this step, not the cabin version, also includes loving those who chose other paths, unconditionally. Even those who are in control. It's a matter of coming to peace with everything that's living, knowing it is all a part of ourselves and therefore seeks to be embraced. You don't always agree with their actions, but you will be able to love who is behind the action as a part of yourself. When you understand that you are playing games with yourself, and that's what life is, it is getting less serious. Ascension and harvest are two different words with two slightly different meanings. Ascension is the process of gradually reactivating your 12 helix DNA and slowly but surely, if you are brave enough, and therefore able to receive the information from your higher selves, or your oversouls, the sun and the galactic center, you will find yourself making new decisions how to live your life, and your old life will be hopelessly obsolete. Your thinking process changes, you will be able to process information from a higher perspective and thus solve problems with greater ease and with more life dynamics in mind when doing so, and you start realizing that you are responsible for everything that happens to you. For some time, you will also feel quite alienated from people in your environment, and you may wonder why you feel this separation when all is one. Don't worry about it, it's natural. The reason, of course, is that your vibration increases faster than your environment, and in the future you will find that this will slowly level out when you, inside yourself, start connecting with the part of the slower developing humanity which is vibrating on your level. Also, alike attracts alike, and you will find people on your own level to connect with. Harvest is the product of the ascension process. Once your DNA is reactivated, you will ascend to realities that your third density reality can't see, and that which does not vibrate in symbiosis with your own reality will no longer be part of it. You have literally fully switched the dial on the radio to a new station. When enough people have reached this level of awareness, Earth will make its transition into the next density. This is the harvest, it's the product of the ascension process on a mass scale. Many will be harvested at the same time and eventually take the big leap into this new awareness of consciousness, and those who chose the machine kingdom will be left in the 3D reality Earth. Not as punishment, but by choice. No one is telling anybody else who can ascend and who cannot, it's not any form of elitism, it's all by choice. In the end, everybody will ascend and be harvested anyway, but in 3D terms, it takes longer for some and goes faster for some. Those who remains in 3D are the souls who've decided that there is more they can, and want/need to learn and experience in the 3D world, and on the highest level, source level, this is very much appreciated. Ascension and harvest are the goals of this planet. In the far future, this is the only way for people who live here to depart from it. As we evolve, in our progress of going back to source and to become one again, we will go to many different places. Once we leave third density and break free from the frequency fence, we become multidimensional and can experience many realities at once and go places in totally different parts of the multiverse while still being grounded in our bodies. We will be able to see that the body, which seems to be so solid and uncontrollable, is actually a product of a divine orchestration, and we, with our consciousness, can do anything we want with it. Life physics, developed by LPGC, call it gnosis, where you are able to stay in your biological body while traveling through space and time with an avatar, which is your light body if you will. There are no limits, none. Think about that last sentence and expand your consciousness by meditating on it. Once you realize what that means, it will blow your mind. If it doesn't, you haven't yet grasped the vastness of it. But don't get obsessed with the thought, just store it inside your mind. One day that sentence will come back to you and give you a major realization. So, take care of your body and expand its usefulness. Trust it, love it, and work with it, not against it. And most important of all, don't be afraid of it. I am not talking about being as pretty or attractive as possible in the eyes of the opposite sex, I am talking about taking care of it, like you would a machine that you want to last as long as possible and work as well as it can under the circumstances. And lastly, here is something from the Pleiadians regarding the harvest. They are also talking about the beings who feed off fear, emphases not an original. Earth's owners, the Anunnaki, have not wanted humans to understand that their feelings and emotions are like a crop, such as wheat, that can be harvested. If you are in charge of your own harvest, then others cannot take advantage of you and use you unless you decree it. When you operate with a certain frequency and sovereignty, those who wish to control you are not interested in you. They want a fearful, chaotic frequency, which is what nourishes them.